All right, everyone. Welcome to our first streamed and performed workshop here. We're doing an online acting workshop with a stage Reborn, Intro to Acting with Shakespeare Monologues. If you'd like to join us, you can join our Discord server at discord.gg/astagereborn. Instructions are on the screen here. There's a voice channel under the premium chat group. Everybody can join it. It'll open up the workshop text channel. You can be muted in audio. That's fine. You don't have to speak. It'll help so you'll be able to listen to us. Just being in that room opens up the chat so that way people who aren't attending the workshop don't get badgered by a bunch of messages. For those that are attending directly and solely through Discord, you can use the workshop text channel to chat about, the topics that we're going to be covering. For example, we're going to dive into monologue selection as the first bit. So you might have questions about things, especially because we don't want to take too much of your time. So you might be like, is this monologue too long? Is this too complicated? We'll help you find something great for you. So then the other part is we are playing an MMORPG while doing this. So this is where some of the transformative works that a stage Reborn gets into come into play. So we're on Final Fantasy XIV. We're on the Diabolos server, which is currently on the Primal Data Center. We're in the Lavender Beds, 8th Ward, plot number 3. If anybody who's watching would like to join us in the game, you are free to hop in. You can make a level 1 character, although a few people let me know that the server is having some congestion issues, so don't have to worry too much about lag, but you might have trouble creating a character and getting in. So if you come late to the workshop, if you, I just noticed somebody's disconnecting, if you disconnect and you come back, don't worry about it. This is something that you can lurk and passively just watch for your own benefit, enjoyment, and learning. If you want to participate halfway through, that's fine. The whole point of this workshop is to introduce you to Shakespeare, to some basic introductory acting techniques, and to be able to do all of this without having to leave your home. In fact, without having to log off of a video game that you may enjoy. Final Fantasy XI, for those that aren't familiar with it, is a popular MMORPG game. And with that, we're going to probably wait a few minutes so we can get more people in there and wait to see who else shows up. I know we've got a group here in-game so far. I know a few people are on Discord voice with us. So hang out, hang back, and relax, and we'll get started in a bit here. All right, and I think we're about ready to get started here. So we're going to be doing, well, I'm going to be doing a little bit of an intro here, so you'll get to see a brief example of some sort of, you know, acting in the game, how we put together emotes, monologues, and motion and stuff like that. All right. So, welcome to our online acting workshop. As you can see, I'm doing a little bit of a gimmick in-game for those that are attending, and essentially I'm going over the same thing there that I'll be going over here in voice chat. So what we're going to be doing today is working on decoding Shakespeare language, understanding the rhythm like iambic pentameter, and also working on some analysis techniques with character analysis, script analysis, and beat analysis, which are often done in introductory acting classes in a university setting and regional theater, so on and so forth, to help you better understand your character. So a lot of, you know, intro to acting stuff is learning how, when you pick a character, you pick a monologue, the character's not you, and you need to learn how to understand how and why that character is saying and doing what they're saying and doing on stage, part of making it more real for your audience and making the performance more genuine and enjoyable for yourself and the cast around you. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and move into the monologue selection portion of this.
And that was a you thing, right there, Wanderer?
Oh no, I didn't mark down on, we'll pick real briefly at the beginning of each section. I forgot to mark my script with who's doing voice, who's doing... Okay, so another neat thing about this, and Pat, relay this in chat in-game for me. Another neat thing about this is because we're doing it simultaneously on voice chat and inside a MMO, the people, you can't see the log, but the people inside the video game, we're relaying a lot of this in text chat with them. And so we'll have either Pat or I will take the voice part where we'll come on stream here, we'll tell you, we'll talk through each segment. And then in-game, the person who's not talking, they're going to be relaying essentially the same things, so that way it doesn't matter if you can't use a microphone, if you can't hear, if you need to see text. If somebody's attending on Discord and you're not in-game and you do need us to put something in the text channel, we do have the workshop channel up here, hashtag workshop. Make sure you're in the voice channel so that way it opens up access to it, and we'll go ahead, we can relay things and work with you in the workshop text channel on Discord. For those tuning into the stream, you can see our Discord invite link on the bottom right corner. For some reason it says 0 online. That is not true, because we have more than 0 online. So we'll go ahead and Pat, you said we were going to have me do voice for monologue selection?
Yep.
All right.
So, by the way, stream, I really apologize for the sound of my keyboard, but you'll hear me doing it.
Boy.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Alright, so the first step of this workshop is searching and selecting a monologue. And I know this can be kind of a daunting experience because, where do you find a monologue? How can you pick one out? Is Google really that trusty and handy for searching, selecting a monologue? The answer to that is yes. All you have to do is, and this is even what I did when I was in undergrad pursuing my acting degree, is you go online and say, a Shakespeare show is coming up. So what I would do is I just looked up Shakespeare Monologues. There are a lot of online listings that will have, you know, I think the one we have pinned in workshop is from shakespearemonologues.org, shakespeare-monologues.org/home. So those that would like to participate, go ahead, open up that URL. We double checked; it's safe. Don't worry. It's a public, you know, thing to help actors and people interested find the monologues. Go through there. And for this workshop, we're going to look at some of the shorter monologues. So, you know, take your time with it. Look for something that you're interested in, that you think you'd feel comfortable, you know, either reading, acting, for those on the video game right now, acting out online. And, you know, kind of pick something out that you're like, okay, this is what I want to work on. It's not a lot of pressure, you know, if you're not sure which one, just make it easy on yourself and pick something shorter, so that way you know you'll be able to apply what we're teaching today to that monologue. So don't put too much stress into picking something out for today. When you do pick out a monologue in real life, sometimes you'll have to think, you know, what's something that I can, you know, be more comfortable reading. You know, as you start to learn about character analysis, you start to wonder, you know, does this character fit what I can do, and, you know, what the director is looking for? And, you know, there's all these little things that go into it. That's something that we might touch upon in a more advanced, you know, audition techniques class that we'll teach in the future. But for now, TLDR, just pick something short, simple, sweet. We'll give you a few minutes. I'm going to look through and pick one out as well. I'll be working on a raw monologue myself, so that way, you know, anybody watching can kind of see the process too. And if anybody has any issues or anything, you know, just ping us in chat, ping us in game, ping us on Discord. Let us know. If you've picked one out, you know, you can wave your hand or something, or, you know, put an emote in chat here and just say, okay, I've got one, and we'll go from there. Oh, one more note. If more than one person picks the same monologue, that is completely fine. You know, one of the things is it can be interesting to see if two attendees have a different take on the character. And that's something that would actually probably help us when we get more into the character and line analysis of the script to, you know, open up discussion on that if two people have the same thing. So if you're doubling up with somebody, don't worry about that. Alright, so Scoot Batoot's got one.
You have chairs in the stage, don't you?
Yes, I do.
I noticed because I just sat with my back to the audience, which is a huge no-no.
It's also probably because it's the bench. Yeah, it's the benches.
I know why there are chairs in the stage.
I noticed a lot of the monologues are from A Midsummer Night's Dream.
I think it just turned out that way, but it's convenient.
Yeah.
The thing about A Midsummer Night's Dream is that it is one of Shakespeare's shorter shows, so in order to pack the same level of story, he did rely on a lot of monologues to move the story in this show. So it's probably some of the best examples of Shakespeare monologues in A Midsummer. Especially mostly from Oberon and Puck, mostly, right, Wanderer?
I believe so.
Yep, Puck has a lot of them. Puck is mostly monologue.
All right, I've got mine.
Which one did you choose?
I need to do one too.
And now I'll check in to see in chat and in voice and stuff if there's anybody who's still searching. That way, you know, we don't do the thing where we're just like, is there anybody else? Is there waiting? You know. But we'll take the time for anybody who's still searching, and we'll help you out too. The one I picked out one of Iago's monologues from Othello. Othello. It's one of them that I actually worked on during my Shakespeare course that I took at WestCon. It's probably one of the ones where a lot of this stuff that I learned and applied it to, it's where I learned it from, so it'll be nice to relive it.
Yep, I have mine chosen. From my favorite show, Julius Caesar.
My favorite show is Hamlet. But unfortunately, well, kind of fortunately, but also unfortunately, this character does not match what I would go for. Now that said, you could, I imagine, choose a monologue that doesn't fit what your character looks like and still work with it.
Yep, this is a workshop. This is for us to learn the process, not necessarily to polish.
And I'm kind of like, oh, what if I did an Ophelia one?
So, does anybody who is attending through voice chat need assistance or more time searching for a monologue? If so, let me know, or you can just say in the workshop text chat, I need more time. That's fine. Actually, yeah, this will be a neat thing. One of the players that are attending in-game and is actually here on voice as well, Titor. So one thing is, you know, some of you, as you're looking for a monologue, and this is a tip for selection, monologue selection as well. Some of you, you know, maybe you got the bug in your ear to, you know, audition for a play at your local theater, community theater, regional theater, and maybe they're doing something Shakespeare and they put out a casting call, come in and read a Shakespeare monologue. And you can figure out, okay, well, this show is a comedy, I'm going to read a comedy monologue, and then you're like, well, you want to get involved, but you don't know Shakespeare, and so you're like, how do I know about this character? How do I know about this play? How can I do a monologue without the context? A lot of these techniques are going to help you dig into the context without actually reading the full play. So, you know, especially, and this is why we're also focusing with Shakespeare and monologues, and doing mock auditions at the end for those who want to do it. You know, it's one of those things where you don't necessarily need to know the play like the back of your hand in order to deliver a good monologue. A lot of it comes just from the technique, and that's what we're hoping to impart on you today, is, you know, that kind of technique where you can take a monologue and say, well, I like this monologue, I'd like to do this monologue, but I don't have access to the show, I'm not familiar with the show, I haven't seen the show, but you could probably nail that monologue anyway just by doing some of these techniques to prepare. All right, and unless anybody needs more time, I think we're ready to move on to language, and this is where Pat and I are gonna swap a Rooney, and Pat will be doing voice, and I'll be doing the text delivery in the game.
Yep. And please feel free to correct me on just about anything.
You too. If you see I say something in game that's not quite right, just be like, Steve, you might want to fix that.
No, I think we're okay, so... Just want to give it a moment or so, just for people to voice any last objections about moving on. All right, well, thanks, guys. So the language of Shakespeare, I've heard it referred to a lot as Old English, Middle English, and that's not true at all. What's great about Shakespeare is it is actually modern English. Sure, some words have changed, but the majority of it is there. And people will break down Shakespeare using both contextual cues as well as dictionaries that are available. In fact, on our Discord, we've actually linked a Shakespeare glossary. Sometimes knowing, like how to break down like hath, doth, thee, thy, there. These are things that, we don't work with regularly anymore. So it's great. And the other thing about Shakespeare language is it was the language not necessarily of nobility, it was common language. These shows were meant to be enjoyed by the public at large, and the writing largely reflect that. So what we're going to do as far as some of this language analysis is let's take a look at your monologue, and generally in the first 2 or 3 lines you may run into that isn't used. Actually, I do not have that in my monologue. Mine is very straightforward, unfortunately. So I think there's a little bit of a grammar thing in this first. For mine, for example. You have done that you should be sorry for. It's written that way to fit a certain beat. Iambic pentameter, which we're going to get into. But in reality, like that first line, you have done that you should be sorry for. So, wow. Really, all that's saying is, you've done something that you should be sorry for. He left out a word there, just to start to fit the monologue. There is no terror, Cassius, in your threats, for I am armed so strong in honesty. And there are many monologues like this. So, anybody in voice chat, do you want to give me a line or two of your monologue? And let's break down that line a little bit. Yeah, anybody? Well, I'm gonna go in and kind of relay what same extra in text in the game. Wanderer's taking from Iago's monologue the line, "Thus I do ever make my fool my purse." And we're asking the audience here in-game what they think that might be. The first 2 lines are really going to help start setting the tone for a monologue and translate the... and one of our participants correctly identified. It's that Iago financially exploits foolish people. And Wanderer continues, "Thus, do I ever make my fool my purse." He's making his fool his purse. It's financial exploitation. So here he's tricked somebody into giving him value, and he's amused. This gives you a lot of insight into Iago's character just from something as, you know, just that first line there. So he brings on a new, more challenging. For I, mine own, gain knowledge, should profane. So, I want to hear what the audience here breaks this down as. For I, mine own, gained knowledge, should profane. Now, this one, when, you know, Wanderer was first looking at it, should profane confused him. Well, you know what? I'm going to use the resource independently of him now, and let's break this down. Should profane. Well, let's search that in the glossary. So, we have a couple adjectives, a verb, so let's see how we're using. Should profane. I think this needs to be a verb. So, misuse, abuse, maltreat, desecrate, violate, and commit sacrilege. Well, for my own gained knowledge, should... So, I'm sitting here looking at this as should profane. So, he's going to abuse his own knowledge to the ends of taking people's money. Well, in context. So, he who commits crimes with the knowledge he had. So, he's abusing his knowledge to abuse others. So, one thing to know, if you haven't figured this out by now, I'll go villain show. Or a villain in that show. Taking from fools and now abusing his knowledge. So, I think we should take the... So, we're gonna take these two lines and put them into layman's term. So, these two Iago lines that we've looked through. You know, thus do I ever make fools my purse, for I mine own gain knowledge should profane. So, let's redo those into layman's terms. Anybody here in voice chat want to try that out?
So if we're starting out with thus, right? It's like, this is how I make my fools. Or here's how I make money off of fools. I take what I know and I abuse it for my own benefit.
Perfect. That's exactly what he's saying. So, I'm waiting here, because I think the next thing that we're going to be moving on to is looking over your own monologues and putting them into, I don't want to say modern English because Shakespeare is modern English, but contemporary English. So, why don't you go through at least a couple lines of your own monologue, and we, you know, give us a line or two that you're kind of moving into. And if you have any questions, let any of us know. We'll help you out with it. So a question came up is, are we, like, what are we trying to do here? We're just trying to interpret it. How would you, if you were this character in 2019, say this to somebody on the street? You were dropped into the universe this play, but the play was set in today's time. How would you talk about it? So, the purpose of being able to do this kind of thing is being able to break this down to something that's a little bit easier to understand. And by doing these kinds of exercises, you get an insight into the character themselves, their motivations, their reasoning for doing things. Because you're putting yourself more in the mindset. You're giving yourself tools to understand it better. So, Corey brings up a monologue, the first two lines of the monologue. I told you, sir, they were red hot with drinking, so fun of valor that they smote the air. Well, red hot with drinking. This one is worth looking up because it could mean a few things, either red hot in the face or being rowdy. I mean, red hot with drinking, I mean, to me, if I were to do that, I mean, it sounds like they're drunk and rowdy. And that's why the second line, so fun of valor that they smote the air. I mean, smite, I mean, that's a word that a lot of people actually know now. To use great force, to attack, to do harm, to injure. But so full of valor. Well, So, they were full of pride, and so full of drunken pride that they smote the air, that they struck at the air. I mean, it sounds like a kind of a rowdy bar scene to me. So, that was pretty cool. Well, Nanamo, over in Discord on the Workshop channel, has put a few things in here. Pretty soul, she durst not lie. Near this lack love, this kill courtesy. Churl upon thy eyes all the power this charm doth owe. When thou weakest, let love forbid. Sleep his seat on thy eyelid. So, she broke this down into modern English. Milady, a woman as pretty as you refuses to sleep next to this guy. Nice guys are gross. Yeet! Here's a charm. When you wake up, he'll love you and... Did you really take Wanderer's suggestion to put yeet in the middle of yours?
I did indeed.
That's amazing.
Anyway, so the thing that was kind of...
Nice.
What was kind of making it a little bit tough was the let love forbid. Sleep his seat on thy eyelid. And, I figured I couldn't find anything in the glossary. So, as much as I hated to do it, I just skipped over it and went to the sleep his seat on thy eyelid. So, obviously he's staying there. The love basically is the result of this charm that Puck is putting onto this guy's eyes.
Right. So, and Steve Wanderer, please correct me if I'm wrong. But the fact of sleep his seat on thy eyelid, that basically he even, you know, he even dreams about that. And that's my very top level interpretation of that line. But yes, basically it's, you know, when you wake up, he'll still love you.
The thing is, the churl is actually, churl is like somebody who is not exactly desired. So I'm actually thinking that it might be referring to the guy in this situation. Because he's saying beforehand, this lack love, this kill courtesy.
Yep. But, you know, I see here under churl being a form of endearment. So let's actually, the Shakespeare glossary tells me that it's used in Romeo and Juliet, Act 5, Scene 3, line 163. Juliet to Romeo, actually, look that. Oh, churl drinkle all, and left no friendly drop. So, you have to imagine that when this is Juliet to the dead Romeo, you know, it's not something, she's calling him churl, it's a term of endearment. Not necessarily.
Sorry.
You know, Juliet, you know, is never going to insult Romeo. Now, there's a couple other ones in there. In one of Shakespeare's other sonnets, he also uses churl. And tender churl makest wast in niggarding. So, again, this is a term of endearment toward somebody, not necessarily an insult, like I believe you may have taken it here. So, churl upon thy eyes I throw. So yes, it's, you know, it's like you kind of jokingly go, "Oh, you fiend," to somebody. It's, you know, calling him a jerk, but not actually meaning it. At least that's what I can see from the context. And I have a lot of typing by Corey. Oh boy. So, Corey, oh boy. So, I told you, sir, they were red hot with drinking, so fond of valor that they in the air, breathing in beat the ground for kissing of their feet, yet always bending towards their project. Then I beat my tabor, at which, like unbacked colts, they pricked their ears, advanced their eyelids, lifted up their noses as they smelt music, so charmed their ears. That calf like my lowing followed through, toothbriar sharp furzes, pricking gross and thorns, which entered their frail shins. At last I left them. I filthily mantled pool beyond your cell, They're dancing up to the shins at this foul lake, o'er stunk their feet. These guys were so drunk they were attacking everything, so I played my drum, and they followed me to their dorm. Yes, Corey, your character is essentially the Pied Piper with a drum. And drunk people. That feels oddly familiar to something else that you've done lately with ASR.
It kinda does. I wonder who you're referring to. I wonder why I picked this line.
So, what Wanderer's going on in the game about is sometimes skipping entirely to try and get the context. And these are contextual clues about what's going on. So rather than, get out of here, you scoundrel, it's, get out, blah, blah, you scoundrel. You know what I'm trying to say still. And even if you don't completely understand it, it helps drive forward like how that line is to be delivered. So there are a few other things, and I think we're going to let Wanderer finish his line that he's working on here, and then move over to character analysis, if you're okay with that, Wanderer.
Sure, I'm just going to finish up here, and then we'll move on to the next segment.
Absolutely.
We're talking, so Suki in game had chosen a monologue from the Scottish... Wait, I'm not in a... Am I? Well, technically I'm in a performance space.
Yeah, we all know what Scottish
The
play
curse!
is.
The curse!
I'd like to say it.
The Scottish play, the leading woman, there's a scene where she's trying to clean her hands of you know, basically imaginary dirt, grime, stuff like... she's not doing so well. And so, you know, at a first glance, you have this, you know... What is it? She's out, damn spot, out, I say, out, 1, 2, and you know, you're kind of like, sure, it does read very plainly, you know, get out, spot, I'm trying to clean this, but what kind of person what kind of person does that when they're cleaning a specific spot? I mean, it's normal for people to talk to themselves, but you know, you read through the rest of the monologue and you go, oh, there's something lurking there in her brain, and it helps you start understanding ways you can say, you know, how to get the spot out. You know, why does she choose the word I command? You know, why does she use a commanding tone? You know, and so those things can kind of also help you translate the language, not just the words, but how they're said.
Okay. Ooh,
I did a lot of studying of that Scottish play in particular, and like I will have to say that was a brilliant choice in monologue, because in context, like, what do you take of the context of that character right now?
She knows something, and she's feeling guilty about it, but she can't tell anyone what happened.
Hey, Steve, I just gave you your segue.
I was typing and I didn't hear it, so...
I basically was asking Suki, like, based on this monologue, what state of mind is her character in right now?
Oh yeah, here we go. This is the segue. So actually, I'll get into that because this is a part that's going to help, and this is a resource that's going to help.
I really, yeah, like, Suki, like, that monologue is going to be nice for character analysis, to tell you the truth.
Yes. I kind of remember it a little bit, because I did a monologue in high school, like, forever ago. But it was more just a reading of it, not so much as analyze it.
Yeah, so one other thing in game that Steve is making a point of is that, you know, there are modern, like, translations of this. SparkNotes is great for that sort of thing, but don't rely on them.
Oh, I know. It's just there's like a help kind of thing, but not like use this.
So it helps you on these passages that you get a little hung up on. Notes is also great about giving you a little more context, which might help you out even more. But they're not always 100% accurate, and that's the thing. A lot of theater is interpretation. It's interpretation of the show, interpretation of the character, interpretation of the language, and it's what really separates, you know, one troupe doing a show versus another troupe doing off the exact same script and have some vastly different products at the end. And you know what? That's okay. You know, as long as the story is told. And yes, I'm rambling to let Steve catch up.
Were we swapping?
Yeah, you said you wanted to swap on this one.
Yeah. Let's see.
Be careful what you wish for.
No, he is. The one with the actual theater degree is the one that has well more to talk about.
Ah, okay.
Pat, you're cutting out. What'd you say?
I said Steve is going to actually talk about this one because the one with the theater degree is far more qualified.
Okay.
All right. Well, now that we've given a bunch of examples of how to look up Shakespeare's language, you know, how to analyze it and break it down, and you probably saw some of this coming, talking about, you know, what do they mean? Why are they using those words? You know, what's it going to sound like when you speak it? And this starts to get into character analysis, understanding the character through preliminary research. So that way, you know, a lot of times, cold auditions and stuff, you'll do them. You won't know the character, you won't know the story, but you want to be able to pull as much as you can from a small amount of text or a short amount of time. And let me tell you, I've been to auditions where they just hand me a random monologue. And they say, we'll give you 10, 15 minutes, and then come on in and read it. And I know it's from a show. And the monologue is confusing, and I don't quite get the character. And I'm like, well, I can quickly check on my phone a couple of resources, maybe understand the character, and see if I can help, you know, that can help with my delivery. So this is actually, we're going to get into some actual acting method here. So more on that later on. But first, let's talk about our initial opinions. We got a little bit of that when we were talking about the language selection, like Tidor, your monologue, it involved, you know, talking to somebody, it's Falstaff talking to Pistol, and Falstaff obviously sees Pistol as this scoundrel. Stop hanging this stuff up on me. I'm not your scaffold. You know, I'm not gonna do this for you. And you can hear it in how I'm, you know, in layman kind of saying it right now, just saying what it is. So you can get these characters, you know, these initial impressions from the characters. You can start understanding the scene. Okay, so now you know Falstaff and Pistol are together somewhere. And maybe Falstaff is somewhere where, you know, maybe this conversation's uncomfortable for him. We don't know that. We could look through the text to see if that's the case. But we could also start to understand who Falstaff is to get to that question. So, let's see here. Is anybody here already familiar with their character? I think Emmy, you chose Puck, so you're already... So I'm going to make sure not to use you for these examples, because what I want to do here is I want to take somebody who has absolutely zero idea who they are with their monologue, and I'm gonna okay, perfect, Tidor, you have no idea who Falstaff is. Great, this is gonna work perfectly. So I think you had made a comment earlier that you had you checked quick spark notes on it. Is that correct? Yes. And don't worry, that's completely fine, and that's part of information gathering. One of the things you do, especially when you're cast in a show, maybe you don't have enough time to read through the entire script. I mean, and this applies to a lot of things. Imagine, and for those who might be watching that are role players on like Balmung or just in a game or just role play in general, imagine joining somebody's 20-year-long story. Imagine hopping into the Marvel universe. Are you gonna have time to research and understand perfectly the entire universe in order to do one character properly? Absolutely not. If you have that much time, then we all envy you. But a lot of times you're gonna get thrown into some kind of universe where you gotta learn to wing it and go with those facts. And that's where things like Spark Notes come in, internet search, or even discussing with other actors, other actors or people who've even done the role before. Whatever you can grab that's right in front of you, be like, hey, don't be afraid to go up to somebody. Hey, who is Falstaff? So why don't we try that as an example? Let's. I know you've got that Spark Notes here. Let's open up Google and literally type, "Who is Falstaff?" Let's see what we get. And another great thing while you're Googling that is that even if your interpretation of Falstaff is not correct, at least as far as what the director wants, that's what they're there for. The director will give you the direction and say, as long as you deliver it confidently, the director's there to help you tailor it. So, and that's the other neat thing about theater is that one person's vision of Falstaff could be totally different from another's. But as long as you apply these techniques, it'll help even when you get into an audition and they're just like, okay, I like your Falstaff, but try doing this. Then you'll know how to apply it down the chain of analysis to impact how you act as that character. So fictional character in four plays by Shakespeare appears on stage in 3 of them. So this is starting to hint to me that Falstaff is kind of what do you call them? One of those recurrent sort of characters.
I want to make sure I'm spelling.
Oh, what is that?
I want to make sure I'm spelling Falstaff right in chat. So,
1 L. Falstaff.
So, sorry, what was your interpretation so I can put that out there again?
So he's appeared in Henry IV, parts 1 and 2, Henry V, and also The Merry Wives of Windsor. And this Teeter's monologue is from Merry Wives. So this is going to be the Falstaff that we look up. And I'm on Wikipedia looking up Falstaff right now. And I know, Wikipedia is not a credible source for citing, but as an actor, you don't need a credible source. You just need fact gathering. You just need to find out, who am I? And just like we develop in real life, you can use so many paradigms and so many influences to develop your character, even if they're not 100% accurate, because you just need the understanding to naturally develop the character yourself. So this is really good for, just getting a glimpse of, who is this character in the big picture for me to act them out. So let's see, he's, Falstaff arrives in Windsor, very short on money. So now we're starting to learn a little bit of the character's history. So I'm not going to read, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, say we're really pressed for time. I'm not going to read 7 paragraphs. I'm going to look for the character I'm interacting with. And we know from our excerpt of the script, he's interacting with Pistol. So let's see if there's anything about Pistol on here. Here we go. So Falstaff had decided to send the women identical love letters that he's trying to court and asked his servants Pistol and Nym to deliver them to the wives. When they refuse, Falstaff sacks them and in revenge tell Ford and Page, husbands of Falstaff's intentions. So now that we know that Pistol is a servant of Falstaff, that helps us add a little more emphasis onto how are you treating Pistol when you're doing your monologue. So this isn't just any scoundrel. This is one of your servants who, you see what happens to him. Pistol refuses, and Falstaff sacks them. So that tells you I probably don't have a lot of respect for this person. So when I'm talking, when I'm doing my Merry Wives monologue there, you want that feeling of I am above you, I don't respect you, and actually you can even get, and this is bringing the language in, if you read down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the 8th line of that monologue of Falstaff's, after he says, "Why thou confinable business, it is as much as I can do to keep the terms of my honor precise. I myself sometimes." He says I 3 times, and that's actually a neat thing in Shakespeare. There's whenever you see a triplet like that, each one generally has to build or be significant from the other. And if you're going through that, just kind of to understand the character even more, you see a lot of I and you. I want a character, let me tell you, I'll give you this one for free. When a character's monologue is riddled with I, me, mine, I, me, mine, mine, I, they're very spotlighty. They are hoity-toity, this is all about me. And so, these are things you can start using. And this is just from Googling one Wikipedia article and looking at the monologue and the language. And now I'm starting to get this sense of who Falstaff is. And I don't like this guy. And this is where the challenge comes in, because you're going to be like, oh, maybe I don't like Falstaff. I've done this before. I've picked a monologue. I've put a ton of effort into it. And then I go, oh, I really don't like this character. So how do I figure out, because there's going to be things like a character is going to do something that you absolutely do not agree with. So your job as an actor is getting in character, understanding, like, okay, so for example, I would never do what Falstaff did. I would never treat somebody like that. How do I become that? And so, one thing you can do is think about your character in simple terms. What is your character's job? What is your character trying to accomplish? Here we know now from a quick Google search, Falstaff is trying to get money by courting 2 different women, basically trying to marry into some kind of money, and trying to finagle his servants into doing his underling work, and they're being difficult with him. So what kind of person does that? You can privately think of a real life example in your head of somebody. Maybe you're just like, who's a Falstaff in my life? This person. And then kind of like start acting it out in your head and being like, okay, so how does this person do kind of, the activities that Falstaff was doing? You can think of TV shows that you've watched. Is there somebody who's done the things Falstaff is doing that you can say, that kind of reminds me of this character from this movie? Maybe go back to that clip from the movie and kind of see how they acted and did things. So this idea, it's you take yourself away from the character's specifics and you start to think, what does this kind of character in general do? And that's when you go, okay, well, actually, I'm going to take this moment, Tidor. What kind of things in general does that kind of person do? Somebody who, let's get away from Falstaff and let's just look at that kind of person in general. Give some other examples of stuff they might do in general, whatever you'd like. Throw them in chat. Oh yeah, there we go. Lazy, lying, use people without really caring. And that first one there, being lazy. You might think that Falstaff is doing all of this con work and trickery, and you might be like, you might not think right away that kind of person is lazy, but you might know people who do things like that, and they're all lazy, and you're like, so I want to be a bit lazy with Falstaff. And then that can help you, and you'll take a look at more of Falstaff lines, and you can be like, points might come up where laziness comes in, and you can, you know, put that in the character. And then that also starts to translate into how you carry yourself on stage, how you emote, how your movement and body movement in mime. Because now you go, okay, Falstaff, and especially the photos on Wikipedia show he's a bit what's the word, husky I'll use. And so you might be like, oh, this guy, if he's sitting in a chair, he's leaning in the chair, he's slouching in the chair, and he's annoyed if people try to make him do something more than his thinking. And so, you know, ask yourself, you know, those things like that. Start to really, you know, create this character in your mind. So, you know, that's a big first step. A simpler example for general things, I remember I crashed this monologue in one of my courses where I was reading for a king. I couldn't remember the specific king, but it was a king. And I walk on stage and I pronounce things beautifully, and I, you know, I gesture and things like that. And I remember it was a course with the theater department's chair, Sal Trapani, and he stops me and he says, "Who the F are you?" And I'm like, and I just say the character's name, and he's like, okay, but no, who are you? And I'm like, well, I'm the king of whatever. And he's like, does a king do that? You're not sitting up straight. Does a king sit up straight? I think a king sits up straight. And then I realized, I was like, I walked on a stage reading it well, but reading it as me. And so I had to go back and I had to ask myself questions like, okay, how does a king walk? How does a king move? And one of the things I noticed is, you know, the way I was gesturing was good, but it was for me. It wasn't a king. So I went online and I was like, okay, I'm going to YouTube, how does it, you know, scenes with kings, to see how they do those grand wall gestures to really help me understand, you know, because this is, kings in that era moved like that all the time. That was just how they moved. And I had to get used to that. And so, that's one thing you do to help yourself get into character is, you know, break down the character into who are they, what are they, in simplest, most broadest terms, and go from there. And now I'm going to move into the magic if, which is if you have taken a Stanislavski or method acting course, you probably already know what a magic if is. And so this is one of the actor's tools, which is used to help you understand your present character in your present situation using what-if scenarios. And so this helps you really get into the skin of the character. And the best thing is to pose questions you can't answer. So for example, and not to pick on you, Tidor, but Falstaff is a good one, and you're a good person to try out these. Magic if questions are often questions you can't answer by reading the spark notes, reading the script, and they force you to understand your character even more. So let's go back to that example. What if, now I'm going to ask you a question I'd like you to answer in the workshop chat. Tidor, you are Falstaff. You've already explored a bit of his character and what he is in the big sense. So what if you walk into a Denny's? Where do you go? What if you walk into a Denny's and need to sit down? Tell me what you do. And you might be thinking, this is Shakespeare. There's no Denny's in this universe. But, probably to the bar. And why the bar? There we go. So now you know he's in need of money, so he's gonna go and try and schmooze. So now, let me ask you this. What if there's no bar? What if there's no people? What if the Denny's is empty? Where would he normally just sit for himself? What if you just need to sit down? Are you sitting at a booth? Are you sitting at a table with a chair? Are you still sitting at the bar, which has backless stools? Ah, yes, definitely. He's a bit round and needs the space. I
have an idea.
Oh, what was that?
I have an idea. I mean, yes, he's lazy. Yes, the table is immediately available. But what if the break room is close by? What if the office for the manager is close by? We can go in there and just sit down at the chair and just kind of sprawl out.
I don't know. Let's ask Tidor. Okay, Falstaff. You notice the manager's door, and this almost sounds like D&D tabletop, because you're like, you notice the manager's door is open. You know, what do? Do you still just sit at your table, or do you snoop around in the manager's office? Are you, is that part of your person? Ah, there we go. Start sifting through it. You're nosy. You know, that's, yeah, and now you can start imagining this character doing this, and, and get blackmail. That's a good one. So now you're really starting to develop this character. Like, you're getting their moral compass established, all because you just glanced at the big picture to understand them. And this is important too, because determining your character's moral compass is also going to help you understand your actions, your movements, your line delivery. So that was good. That was a good exercise. I was thinking he would go to the booth, because sometimes if I'm lazy at a restaurant, I'll like slide into a corner booth and slouch, and I'm just like, yeah, bring it to me. I got all the space. But if he is quite rotund, then that might be a problem getting in and out of the booth. I can see that happening. So that was good. I'd give you a hand of applause, but my hand's on the push to talk button. So imagine I'm clapping, acting.
Jazz hands. Yes, jazz hands.
Oh, jazz hands. So I think this is the part where I think does anybody have any pressing character ideas that they want to put in chat? Any thoughts about their character? I know we're pushing over an hour 15 now, so I don't want to, I want to try and keep stuff going so we don't go way too over on time. But does anybody have any questions, or are confused, or would like to know more about character analysis and how to start digging through the material to better understand your character?
Not really, but I do think it's really interesting how our sessions of D&D kind of like help with this as well.
It is. A lot of that is magic if. I mean, just from last night's D&D session,
yeah,
you're sitting...
It really is.
You're, for us, it's like we're sitting in a cave. The wall has caved in. What if?
It's like D&D RPing even.
It is.
That's exactly what it is. It's using those, impossible situations to figure out like what characters' motivations, actions, mannerisms really are, and it makes them more real than just reading off of a page and following directions to the left. I hear no objections.
Nope.
No objections. All right. Well, are we ready to talk about the most fun part of Shakespeare?
Ooh. Yes.
Yes.
Badum, 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 badum. And with
Can I please use my example?
Go ahead. I was just about to say, and with that heartbeat, we're gonna go into iambic pentameter, metered speech in general, the speaking patterns, and we're gonna have Pat taking over here on voice.
Okay. So this is actually something that, a lot of people have heard what iambic pentameter, metered speech is. It's that beat pattern of weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong. Weak being weak beats and strong being strong beats. And a lot of people sit there, struggling with it a little bit. But there is one very, very kind of easy mnemonic way to learn iambic pentameter. There's a very famous pop song from the 90s that uses pentameter. What are you doing? Oh, he's actually doing I am in
We're gonna in the game. I'm gonna be doing some beat work with an actual instrument. Which this is a cool part about Final Fantasy is you've got a perform tool in here where you can perform on instruments. So I'm gonna use a little bit of that to help with rhythm stuff.
In my honest opinion, it is the best part of the game.
So, you're hearing a little bit of IMs there. Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. There's a pop song from the 90s that uses iambic pentameter through its entirety. Britney Spears' Hit Me Baby One More Time is entirely in iambic pentameter. So, I must confess, it's killing me. Hit me, baby, one more time. That last one's actually the last syllable's an inverse iamb, but that's... We'll get to that. Or, it's an inversion, I should say. Yeah. Yeah, but seriously, like, if you think of the rhythm of Hit Me, Baby, One More Time, it's iambic pentameter. And that's a great way to learn it. And the fact that it's there, but it's not super stressed at the same time. You know, I'll take the monologue I have, for example, and go through a couple lines here and see if you can hear what's not your normal iambic pentameter, but also these other things called inversions, where you'll flip a couple of the iambs. The iamb being the strong beat. Or if you, you know, you have an indivisible syllable, where you put two strong beats next to each other in order to keep together. So, and I'll go here for, which I respect not. I did not send to you for certain sums of gold, which you denied me. I can raise no money by vile. By heaven, I had rather coin my heart and drop my blood for... I can't pronounce that. Drachmas, than to ring. But you see, it's kind of a weak, strong, weak, strong. It changes kind of where the inflection is on some words, if that makes sense to anybody, or to everybody. I shouldn't say to anybody. You know, people imagine them as a heartbeat. There's a Sonnet 12, Wanderer, that's perfect.
You want me to read it?
I do count the clock that tells the time.
Ah.
I know how iambic pentameter works, Steve. No, but it's the idea of I count, clock, tells, time. You know, it not only that, but it kind of emphasizes bits of the phrase. And it's used in that way. Like, now is the winter of our discontent. Now, winter, and discontent are all kind of stressed that way. So, it's a way to kind of make delivery a little bit more interesting, writing a little bit more interesting. So, yes, it pulls attention in neat ways. So, not only is there a lot of iambic pentameter in Shakespeare, but there is some prose, which is normal speech. It's how you and I would talk normally. And those happen and are mostly just kind of interjections in a lot of Shakespeare shows. So for those of you on voice, you know, why don't we try reading a couple of lines from our monologue in iambic pentameter? And for those of you in the text chat who are doing a little more beat analysis on this, but you can see how he's emphasizing iambs in a line. Why don't you guys play around with that in there? And those of you on voice, read a line or two from your monologues, you know, the best you can. keeping in mind of that rhythm of ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. Anyone want to try their monologue?
Just part of it or whole thing?
You could do the whole thing if you feel like it. Absolutely.
I could do my first line of Iago.
Go for it.
I'm going to do a quick analysis. I noticed there's an inversion in it, so while actually hold on for a second here.
Yep, so again, you have your normal IAMs, then you have inversions where you'll flip one of the IAMs. So, instead of, for example, how most people would say discontent, where, you know, discontent is how it's said normally.
Discontent.
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 Yes, exactly. You flip the stress. So what would normally be stressed in everyday speech is the weak syllable all of a sudden. And everything else is stressed. That's an inversion. And then again, indivisible will be putting too strong or too weak endings next to each other in order to help keep a word together.
So I'll go through my Iago's first line here in this monologue as a sample. So without any sort of emphasis or whatever, the first line plainly reads, "Thus do I ever make my fool my purse." So I'm gonna, look at what words really deserve emphasis in this. What makes more sense? Thus do or thus do? So now I know that's an inversion, because thus do does not make sense when I speak it, but thus do does make a lot more sense. Then I have I ever. So it looks like that's where the inversion, there's that switch again, I ever. But I can tell in ever, like you can even just saying the word ever, you can hear ver is unstressed. So now I know to mark that unstressed. Make, following unstressed is stressed. My fool, unstressed to stressed, because we're not focusing on we're focusing on fool. Then my purse, same thing there, not focusing on the stress comes on purse. So then in the end I have thus do I ever make my fool my purse. Does that sound like I'm proud of myself, like we analyzed Iago to be? Amused with his own. See how it kind of adds up?
He's really proud of himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, exactly. So why don't we take at least a couple lines of our monologue, look them over, determine how that would be spoken in pentameter, and see if we can deliver it, either in-game or over the voice chat like this. Does anyone have any questions?
Not so far, nope.
Mm-mm.
Yep, so Wanderer is going to go ahead and put that back into his into text chat, what we just kind of did over voice here. And we're going to give you guys a couple minutes to kind of go through and figure this out for yourselves.
I know this can be a little bit harder to do in the game too, because I know iambic pentameter is very much a voice emphasis thing. You're talking about stressing syllables, so.
But when we're doing this in game, it helps you pace out some of your macro lines a little bit. By spacing those macros, you can give a reader a bit of an effect of what you're trying to do here. So understanding where it came from is going to be very important. Understanding where you're going with it and how you try to implement this concept in game.
The way that I hear it, at least in my head, is a little bit weird. Because I know, like, you can meter it out. Where it's like, through the forest have I gone, but Athenian found I none. But what I hear in my head instead is a very simplistic, like, through the forest have I gone. Like, it's very, very simplistic, I guess. And it sort of reminds me of, like, the Moonlift dance for some reason. Like, if I were to put some sort of dance to it, that's what I think of.
And that's not uncommon. I mean, iams are not just a literary device in theater, it's also a very common medium. You see iams all the time in dance. You see it all the time in music. In fact, I mean, you know, for early music theory students, when you're learning how to set up phrasing and stuff in music, they give you Shakespearean sonnets to do it with for that reason. Because it's something that, at least, you know, when you're learning in college, you've gone through years of high school generally dealing with this at some level, so there's some level of familiarity with, you know, the pacing, and it translates well. And again, it shows up even in modern pop music. And, you know, I would even say after this workshop to challenge you guys, you know, go out, listen to some of your favorite songs. You're going to notice these kind of things in there. And eventually you'll start kind of thinking that way when you're reading these sort of things. Because you'll have a much wider background and exposure when you're more cognizant of it happening. So Corey just brought up something very interesting. You know, the sentence feels like it can mean something entirely different depending on which syllables get stressed, and it's true, they can. So yeah, it's interesting how this all happened. So, as Steve is bringing up again in game, there are different Shakespeare. There is prose and verse, and what we've been talking about is verse, and one strategy of verse. There are actually a couple others. But this is the most common in, for sure, this is the most common type of verse in Shakespeare. But there's prose, which again is just like you and I talking. There's no metering to it, just out there. And that's what's kind of challenging, because I picked a monologue that's actually a lot of prose and not metering. So I picked a really terrible example for this workshop, didn't I, guys? That said, you know, you'll have like side characters, interjections, things like that. There's no metering to any of that. It's just there. You know, versus somebody trying to speak to a crowd. Also, iambic pentameter. One thing is, if you ever listened to some of the more famous speakers, Winston Churchill, Barack Obama, and, you know, others throughout history that may or may not have been very good, but if you notice some of these large speeches, they'll talk their speech in metered speech, in pentameter. So, it's a lot, you know, there's a lot of really great examples that a lot of people miss, and it's really interesting. So, luckily though, written scripts are generally make it easy to tell the difference. The verse will be in lines about, you know, 10 syllables plus or minus a couple. Because again, it's called iambic pentameter, or sorry, I should say iambic pentameter, because there's 5 groups of strong, weak syllables to the line, generally. It changes, but that's most of it. Does anybody have any thoughts, questions, concerns, trials, or tribulations before we move on to beat? Hearing nothing, I think this is your voice section next.
Yep. I'll go back to playing dead in game. Okay, well, beat analysis.
Am I gonna jump up by accident?
Maybe. Don't worry, everyone. We're entering the home stretch here, so it will wrap up within 2 hours, I believe. The final step here, and this is something that goes into the actual play itself. Not just your monologue, but after you've been cast, and you're looking at the whole script, and you go, now I have to take all of this work that I put into this one character and one monologue, and I gotta stretch that over an entire script of understanding it. Welcome to beat analysis and line analysis. So, what is a beat? Does anybody know what a beat is? Or in the hashtag workshop chat, does anybody want to try and, you know, give a guess at what a beat is? It's okay to be wrong, because even I get beats wrong sometimes now, even when I know the definition.
I mean, I can give the music definition for you.
Corey's close. It is a type of pause. It's essentially every
the movement of. Well, okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's essentially it's every driving moment of the play, of the conversation, of your own character's monologue. For example, there's a beat. When I'm thinking of what to say next, I'm thinking of what to say next before I say what I'm going to say next. That could be another beat. And so it's the play, moment by moment. It's your monologue, moment by moment. Beats make up the rhythm of conversation. It's call and response when you're dealing with dialogue. And so, but call and response can even be silent. So that's why, you know, this is something that still applies to monologues, because you personally can have a beat when you shift in your monologue, when you pause, when you have a moment. You know, a character might pause, go over to do something, fix themselves a drink on stage. Maybe they're, you know, you have that break. Or sometimes there might be a character on stage that has a short line that breaks up the monologue a bit every now and then, and those are beats. So, you know, every bit of a play has purpose. Shakespeare, I mean, okay, maybe he did, but when writing a play, you generally don't just put filler for the sake of filler. every person's line has a meaning behind it. There's a reason, there's a rhyme and reason to everything, and everything is meant to progress the play along. So, in understanding beats, we're going to tackle some of these moments in a way that makes sense to us and to the audience as if it were real. So this is the part also that tackles analysis of, okay, I know character A says this, character B says that, character C says this, then back to character A, they say this. The point of beats is to avoid a robotic conversation. It's to make sure you don't go, hey, what time is it? It's 11 o'clock, thanks. You need to understand each moment of that conversation to put action and emotion into it. So, is anybody comfortable speaking on voice? I would like to type a little bit of a very short set of lines for two people to try out. Just having an exchange and then seeing if you can identify where the beats are in that exchange. If you want to try that on voice real quick, if we only get one volunteer, I'll do the part 2. But just type in chat. I'll probably take the first person who says pick me. Oh, come on, there's got to be at least one person who wants to try it. I'll type out the 3 lines that this example is going to use. If I can find the workshop chat.
You can do it.
All right, 3 lines, 2 characters. So who wants to be one character, and does anybody else want to be a second character in what I just posted to workshop?
I'll try it.
Yes. All right. Me and Corey will do it. So let's see. One person takes line number 2. The other person takes lines 1 and 3. What would you like to do?
I can do number 2.
All right. So we'll go through them, and then after we're done, you tell me where you think the beats are. So here we go. Hey, what time is it?
It's 11 o'clock.
Thanks. So what do you think the beats were?
Between hey and what time is it? And between it's and 11 o'clock. Because the it's is mostly filler, but the main information you want to know is what time it is.
Mm-hmm. And then what about in the last line?
The pause before the thanks.
And then one more at the very end. At least that's presumed. But yes, essentially. And here's the thing, and this is always what got me with beat analysis. It's sometimes it's okay to have more beats than you really need. So there's something called dramatic beats. Those are much larger beats. They usually involve a character with like an irreversible change in his or her thought process or beliefs, or a shift of power between characters, or even just a bigger shift in the conversation. This kind of beat analysis is more focused on the line. It helps bring you from movement to movement, so that way you can understand your character in the present moment. That way, you're not rushing your lines. Every line you're able to rehash your character and say, okay, this is my intent and stuff going behind this line. And these beats, this is what also is going to go into line analysis, which is we're not going to focus too much on it because it can get really lengthy. But it helps you start putting truth behind everything your character says. Once you identify the beats, you identify the call and response, and you're able to really get a handle of the communication transaction. So that was very good. Thank you. So let's see here. I mean, that's the basics of beat analysis and how you really get into splitting up your lines to help with that conversational analysis. Now, the real kicker comes in, and this is the part where actors get their acting homework. And whew, there's been so many assignments that I've had to do in the past for this. So these, if you do these if you are in a production and you do a line analysis for your character for the entire script, A+ to you. Not only will it be massively helpful, but a full line analysis will guarantee, well, maybe not guarantee, but it will really, really help you make sure that you understand everything your character is doing. And it's also going to help you with memorization of lines, if you need to memorize things. So that way, you can walk on stage and you really understand the substance of what your character is saying and doing. So every moment that drives the conversation is a beat, and every beat contains a line or silence, action, no action. All of that always carries meaning. So that can be daunting, knowing that even when you're doing nothing on stage, you're still doing something. That's another thing that this will help with. So line analysis. There's 5 parts. Write this down. If you are really interested in taking something home to do on all of your stuff, write these 5 things down. They are so important. Number 1, what is your commitment? What are you committed to? Let's go back to that short little exchange we had. Hey, what are you committed to when you were saying hey to me? Was it just a greeting? Was it, you already know because you know the line that's coming next. So you're committed to getting my attention. So you know that when you say hey, your movement, your tone, all of that stuff, it goes into getting my attention. Not just introducing, but getting attention. And this is also where action verbs can come in. Pat, I did not put this in the guide. I should have. Action verbs essentially are verbs that explain everything you're doing, every single line. Pick an action verb for it. It's very challenging. You can get lists online, but using action verbs will really help you put true meaning into every line that you do. And they're also great for when you're doing like performances in a video game or something, some kind of alternative production, and you're like, okay, I need to pick an emote for my character. Go through your action verbs, find what fits, find the emote that closest fits. You'll start to get a selection of actions you can do. So that's intention. So speaking of emotes, number 2, physical action. What are you doing? I know we only did a vocal thing, but Corey, what do you think you were doing for a physical action on that very first beat of hey?
I turned to look at you.
Just to look?
Mm-hmm.
Good. You can even explore this even more. Say you have a very open space. What are some things you might be doing as well? Additional physical actions. I noticed you didn't say you're waving or gesturing at me. What might you be doing that could take up even more physical action space to help set the scene?
Could be walking around, I guess.
Could you be texting on an iPhone?
That too.
Although it makes you wonder, why would you ask the time if you were texting on an iPhone? But that's, these are, see how it kind of gets you thinking, being like, could I, when you mark down the physical action that you select, it really gets you thinking about the scene. Because if you're asking for the, maybe this person, maybe in the full script, they weren't asking for the time. They were just trying to bring up a subject. Maybe they didn't want to talk about it with this person. Maybe they're a friend of this person and they need to discuss something they really don't want to. They couldn't think of anything else to start talking to them. So even though they're sitting there looking at the time, they're like, hey, what time is it? And so these physical actions you can really, gain from what makes sense around you. And just remember, writing them down is the most helpful thing, because then you can really look at them and be like, does this make sense going through every line? So then the third thing, number 3, tempo rhythm. How is your, and this pertains to movement and speech, how is your movement? This is often described as, something like quick and rigid, or I'm fluid, I'm relaxed, I'm very, maybe you're moving at a grave sort of movement, you're like trudging along. Those are the kind of words to make sure that you've probably seen it. I'm guilty of it. You get somebody on stage and they start, they just slide into this comfortable way of doing their monologue. And the person goes through all these emotions and different things in the monologue. And the thing is, when you go through these monologues, there are a lot of little changes in the character. Your character might have the first 2 lines where they're feeling, they're ecstatic. And then all of a sudden, the 3rd line, they're remembering something. And then the 4th line, they're back to dread. But then they're remembering, wait, I have reasons to be happy. And so your tempo rhythm needs to match these changes. So it's important to do it for every beat and every line to understand, when is there going to be a transition in what my character is, how they're presenting on stage. That's tempo rhythm. And now that also feeds into inner monologue, which is number 4. Inner monologue, simply put, what's your truth? Your character speaks one thing, what's going on in the inside. And a lot of it, sometimes you might find yourself, with a very honest character. They're what they say is what it is. And that's fine. Put that down, because their inner monologue, it'll reflect that honesty. And that's important to understand with your character. So even if it doesn't seem like there's something special for inner monologue, and I can't tell you how many times I've had a character in undergrad where I was doing a show and I'm going through my script analysis and I'm just like, inner monologue, it hasn't changed in like 2 pages. Why am I copy pasting this? But when it got to those scenes, I was able to segment those beats and make sure that I was in the proper present moment with my character for those scenes, because I had known, like the back of my hand, okay, my inner monologue doesn't change until this moment, so I know not to change until this moment. And that's a good thing, because sometimes, especially if you have a confusing character or a very, dynamic character, it's very important to understand those changes, because the audience needs to see those changes. And so that goes into number 5, subtext. What's really going on here? And that actually goes back, for Shakespeare, that goes back to our language analysis. Remember, we had you pull layman's terms of, hey, what is your character really saying? What's the lowdown? What's really going on here? Well, when you're doing a line analysis, you apply that to everything. You break it down into your own words, the simplest words anyone can understand. What's really going on here? And, sometimes it can get lengthy. Sometimes, again, it's just like the other one where you're just like, well, they're saying what they mean, so that's what's really going on, and that's fine. So for an exercise, I had thought about doing a beat and line analysis of everyone's monologues, but as you can see, that is quite lengthy. So what we're going to do instead is we're probably going to take a short break while I sip some tea. And no, but really, those 5 parts of doing that analysis are very important, and we do want those who are participating with monologues to at least do some of this. So we are going to take a short break on the stream, so that way those participating can get into a little bit of script analysis like this. But then after this, we are going to go back live and do some mock auditions. If you want to do mock auditions when we're not live, that's fine as well. Just let us know. Anybody who does want to run a mock audition, let us know during this break. And when we come back, we'll move into audition techniques, which it's just going to be briefly, more hands-on putting together these macros in Final Fantasy XIV. Or if you want to do a voice reading of your monologue, we'll workshop it a bit in voice. And then we'll run monologues. And if we find a point where, maybe we can attempt giving you a bit of direction, we'll try that as well, so you can get a little bit of experience of what it's like to go through a amicable audition process with brand new material and rock it. So once again, we're going to take a short break here, and we'll be back in, I will say, how's everybody feel about a 9-minute break? Come back on the hour.
That sounds good.
That sounds good.
All right, so we will be back on the hour to wrap up and go into audition technique with these monologues. Thank you so much. We'll see you all in just a few minutes when we come back. All right, and we are back. So to recap, we just finished off the final section here on the beat and line analysis, script analysis. I think there's a few names for it. Remember the 5 things: intention, physical action, tempo rhythm, inner monologue, and subtext. We asked the participants if they were interested, apply this to their monologue. We don't expect you to do a complete one because it is a little bit of a daunting task, but it's a very useful skill to really make sure that you're getting into the language. So with that, we're going to move on to the closing segment of today's workshop, and we are going to open it up to audition techniques. So, Pat, are you back yet?
I am.
Wonderful. I was like, well, I'm coming back at 6 o'clock and forgot to check if you were here. So it's going to get a little quiet on stream, except for if anybody in voice chat here or text chat on Discord or in-game chat has questions while we're putting together monologues. I know Scoop, Emmy, you're already, Nanamo, Emmy, Scoop, need to make a hybrid of your names. I know you're already working on some with Puck. I'm working on Iago, which actually, if anybody's tuning into the stream, you'll actually be able to watch me putting together my macro for Iago. And so I'm going to let people know that in game too. If they want to watch me putting Iago together, they can check the stream. So we're gonna just let things go for a little while. If anybody has questions that's in the workshop on the stream, you're just like, hey, I have a question, I need help putting something together, so on and so forth, let us know. Pat and I might chime in every now and then with a bit of advice or something regarding the mock auditions. We're going to take a quick inventory of people who do want to do a mock audition or at least run their macro when it's finished. And then we're going to take the time to put them together. So like I said, you'll watch me doing it live. And then if anybody is participating in the mock audition, please say in in Final Fantasy XIV chat, mock audition, say in the workshop chat, mock audition, just so we have an inventory. If you just want to run your macro, say perform in game chat or in workshop chat. And so once we get to everyone's that said their stuff, we're going to check with them, make sure everything's done, and then we'll run it.
So out of curiosity, how many lines usually...
How many what?
How many lines do you use per macro? Do you do it all at once, or...?
Macros
let's
have
see.
15 lines, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. What I did is Iago's, I believe, is 21 lines total. So I split Iago up into 7. I'm going to relook, though, because I want to make sure that if there's anywhere that's going to use a bigger pause, I'll probably use that to split into the next macro, just in case I lag on hitting the next button. That way the pause is a little more intentional. But usually it's a safe bet to say, put 7 lines in your macro, because that gives you at least 1 extra macro line to do an emote, an ability, or even add in a wait line for doing some movement.
So for when I perform, does there happen to be any gender? Does not matter what gender. Does anybody have play dead? Because I will need 2 people to play dead.
I can play dead for you.
I have played it too.
Yay, thank you.
And here, I'm gonna boost the size of my screen here for anybody watching.
I'm probably going to be like yelling a lot to try and get timings right.
That's funny. Pat and I, we just did doubt at the same time.
Nice.
By the way, in order to keep the chat kind of clean, I'm using a lot of /echo. That way I'm not shouting at everybody in the room.
Oh yeah, yep, that's a good thing to do.
Wait, why do my wait actions stop working? Only my first wait action is being...
Paste what you got into workshop. I'll take a look. You forgot the period.
Where?
On the bottom too. And you don't have to put action on the emotes.
You do if you have emote go out to chat.
Oh, to make them silent, you just toggle it off.
I like doing that because if I share this macro or copy it over to another character, ever, it stops it from actually doing that. And I don't have to think about it. Whoops. Okay.
Okay, I made a separate little log so that way we could see, say, shout, yell, and echo for me while I'm working on mine so people can see what I'm doing. A nice little pro tip for those who are making macros in Final Fantasy XIV. Using a 4-second wait time between lines is kind of like the standard that we've come to realize with all the stuff we've done as a stage Reborn. So usually, you know, if you're just like, well, just for putting together something, what should the basic minimum wait time between say lines be? And always go wait for. Emotes you can usually bunch up, as you can see with mine. You see, you know, like this one that I have up on screen, I have, we'll do as if for sure, he holds me well, there's a wait to, then a Eureka, another wait to, then a welcome emote in the next line, and a wait for. So, you know, I always try to do it where every action plus chat line has a wait of 4 between the next. That way you usually avoid most chat log errors, because some games there's a you know, chat flood prevention. And the one thing about macroing lines of a script is that you can't always pause your character, fix it, and then pick up in enough time in a live performance. So, you know, if you're wondering, you know, oh, why are you throwing emotes and then quickly throwing 2 wait 2s or a wait 4 in there? It's that's just what I've become accustomed to doing to make sure that I avoid as many chat errors as possible. So, neat thing. One of the things you have to deal with in video game MMOs, video game theater versus real life, is that there is a point where the game forces you to stop talking that fast. I should have that in real life for myself.
I think what's giving me the most trouble right now is picking which to use.
Okay, I think I've got something basic.
Yeah, I think I've got something pretty basic.
Is it just the three of us?
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay, well I'm lagging behind, so give me a few minutes here to finish my monologue up. Oh, I've got Scheme to work up perfectly.
Nice.
I love that blue mage. Blue mage pain.
It's great, isn't it?
Oh, it works so well for this villainous shenanigans.
See,
Oh, it does.
I have no emotes. I am about as good as a level 1 character. Which is fine. That's good.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing too. Actually, I'll make sure, remind everybody watching in-game and on the stream that you are using, like, bare bones character. Like this, you could do this brand new to the game.
A level 2 character right now.
Like mine's special because this is my main character, so.
Yeah.
I wonder if I were to refine this, I would use a sparkler instead of what I'm about to do. Or like some kind of free or, pretty cheap prism.
Do I have any of those is the question.
Anybody have any, like, Stardust? Stardust would be good.
I have a Cascadier.
I have confetti.
Confetti would work.
I have peach and cherry confetti.
Yeah, that'll definitely work.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
I
I'll take that.
I don't have anything.
You want any background music?
How many?
I need that Liberty Gibbet.
Oh, I don't have it on this character.
What else would work? I need something a little bit, like, just silly. Thank you. Oh, this is gonna be great.
Any of the event music?
Ooh.
Jeez.
It's a little bit too upbeat. Let's see. You should play that with yours. Nah, I mean we're kind of going for like nighttime trickery.
Night in the Broom.
The Sylphs theme?
The Sylph theme.
I was thinking Flibberty Gibbet, that is the Sylph's theme,
Yeah.
but it's not there. Oh, you know what would be good? The Heaven's Turn, or not the Heaven's Turn, the All Saints Wake.
Oh, yep, yeah, that works too.
I think that would be a decent alternative.
Oh, you mean Up at Dawn.
Yeah.
The one that's like from POTD. Kind of. Oh, there, that one.
Oh, perfect. Yep, here we go. This is tough to do when I'm running.
Alright, what about you, Pat?
Yeah, I guess I did super basic. Closer to a reading than anything else, but yeah, okay. Oh, you mean for music?
Yeah.
On the playlist, just use Defender of the Realm.
Alright. So we'll just, rather than mock auditions, we'll just run our performance macros, since I think it'd be a little silly to have me and Pat try to give each other direction at this moment, but because he already knows too much and I know too much, so we'll run our performance macros. Pat or Emmy, do you want to go first?
I'll get mine.
Okay.
Give me a second to move the orchestrion.
By the way, there's a good chance I'll mess up. But we will see. This is what like auditions are for, because keep in mind this isn't like practiced at all. Really.
Let me know when to cue Defender.
Go ahead. That's gonna be a new firework, isn't it?
Alright, up next is Scoots. Let me know when to cue the music.
Okay, you can cue the music whenever, and then I'm I'm going to tell you when to come out on the stage. Basically you and who is it? Suki? Both come out on stage after I do what's the line here? I'm gonna run off stage after I say on whose eyes I might approve. So I'll let you know in voice too.
Okay.
But feel free to cue the music whenever.
Wait, is this why we need the play dead?
Yep.
Yep, you're gonna come out on stage and play dead on either side of the stage. So one on one side and one on the other.
Okay.
I'll come out on the side that Scoot entered on. Because I'm in first person view to get this part of the monologue.
Alright, getting to places.
Oh, now?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I'll go ahead and get on stage and play dead.
I just look like I fell down for a nap.
The majority of staff members of ASR get on the stage.
Oh no, it didn't work.
Oh no!
Hang on. I'm gonna fix the macro. I gotta fix the macro because you wanted. Okay, here we go again. Take 2.
Oh, I see what happened. Okay.
I made a couple of errors when I was translating it to Yelp, but that is it.
You know, it's a funny thing about Midsummer Night Dream, because you know how there's like the cheesy scene where it's like the actor acting and stuff like that? You notice Puck's second to last line, "So awake when I am gone." Like, on one hand, it's like, it's almost like Shakespeare wrote in Puck is gonna say this to remind whoever's the body on the floor to wake up after Puck leaves. Stage direction, get up after Puck leaves.
It's true.
Because I think you know, I need to do research on this, but I think one of the things is like during the time, you know, things like witchcraft and stuff were really believed in, and in order to do them, they're like, oh, you do all these intricate ritual things and you have to say these special magic words, and Puck's words are literally, "So awake when I am gone. Bye." Like.
I can slash goodbye. We can do this again with the slash goodbye in there. And now that all the keys are worked out, it'll be smooth.
Yes. You wanna try it again, or?
And then I gotta get some villainous music out.
Yeah, we can. Give me give me a second. Let me put in the extra line.
Okay.
Escape.
Escape.
Also, I moved too soon. Let me see what I can do about that. Okay, I'm good. Let's do it again.
Okay.
Okie doke. Come on out.
Oh, oops. Oh, oops. My bad now. My controller slipped. I'm sorry.
Yay!
Alright, now for some Iago.
Love this song.
Well, there we have it. Well, that was a fun and exciting experience, and thank you everyone that joined us. Voice chat, in-game, text chat. We're thinking about doing this again on other servers, possibly even other games. Let's see what I have here in my notes. We've got a few other acting technique development and exercises. If anybody is interested in those, I know some of our acting technique stuff that we'd like to do in the future. It's going to touch upon method acting with Stanislavski, Meisner, Hagen, practical aesthetics, Spolin with improv, Alexander movement, Laban movement, acting for the camera. For acting development, we're looking into things like scene acting, period styles, showcase development. Acting exercises will include things like acting essentials, script analysis, beat analysis, and that specific dramatic beat analysis, which is more broad and more focused on the plot. So look for those coming up in advanced workshops. We're going to look into tying workshops into play production. And if you're interested in this kind of thing, go to www.astagereborn.com, check us out, learn more about our 501c3 nonprofit. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, all sorts of the social medias, Instagram. Join our Discord, discord.gg/astagereborn. We've got a big social hub, lots of stuff to do, information and announcements for events like this, and we hope to see you again soon for another workshop. Thanks for joining us.
Yay, thanks for putting this on.
Yeah, thank you.
It was fantastic.
Actually, really interesting.
Yeah, I learned a lot. Like a lot of stuff. Like, you know, like it was like in high school, it's like, oh, Shakespeare, that's so complicated. Then you guys have to like mention a brief explanation. Now it's like, dang, it's not hard.